What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Even Your Dynasty show. We are live on a Thursday night tonight because I've got plans tomorrow. So we're not going live tomorrow night. We're doing it today instead. Next week we will get back on our normal Friday 8:30 ish p.m. schedule. Actually, next Friday it'll be a bit early, huh?
Next Friday will be a little bit early, but it'll be worth
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We will release who our guest is sometime probably next week once I get confirmation again. We haven't confirmed, but we're gonna double up on the confirmation just to be sure. But it is somebody on the East Coast, so we are
I'm
going to be going at 7:30 next
I'm
Friday.
I'm
Here we
excited
go.
for that one. That one will be fun.
He's quite the personality, I will say
That
that. Really
that he
enjoy the
is.
guy.
Yeah,
Funny
that he
dude.
is. So it'll be a good one. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah. Oh, yep, Cole's. Hey, if you guys can think about it, good for you, but I'm not going to be confirming anything until later in the
Yeah.
week. And we also have a few others. So, yeah, appreciate everybody joining in. Ricky will probably be joining us here in, I don't know, 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes. But we're going to talk a little bit. Giants signed Jake Lamb. Who cares? They also traded Taylor Rogers, saved $6 million. To the Reds, they got a throw-in piece back in Braxton Roxby. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't know anything about this guy. Haven't watched him at any point. All I can really say is kind of not a great ERA in both AA, A ball. He did okay in high A before getting promoted to AA. Then it was a struggle. Yeah, Rob, sorry, man. I wish it was Friday. I really do, but it's Thursday night. We had to jump on a little early. Yeah, so that's what we got going on. Yesterday, obviously, the big news: they traded Taylor Rogers, created $6 million in space. Who knows what they may be having, what they might have in store right now. On one hand, they now have, I think, about 26 or 27 million under the tax, according to
27.
COTS.
Mhm.
Yeah. So not quite probably what you would think could fit like an Alonso type. Not that I have that really in my head that they're going to even try. But enough to fit a pretty substantial bat. And there's obviously players that they could potentially move.
Yeah.
They could also just be looking to be cheap. That wouldn't shock me with this ownership group. Or, maybe they really are trying to create an opportunity for young guys. So, I mean, what do you think of the move, and what do you think kind of going forward, what this means?
I mean, it was clearly just, a salary dump type of move. Freed up 6 mil. Taylor was the guy that we mentioned for months that could possibly be moved to free up some money, and it ultimately happened. So, I mean, wish him the best, but some people on X said it best. We're paying him 12 mil to pitch the 6th inning, and you can definitely, especially with the amount of bullpen arms that came up last year, and kind of showed some worth, as well as some that are, knocking on the door. You can make a case that now you can kind of squeeze one of those guys into that Taylor Rogers roll up for, while saving 6 mil. So I'm all for it. But like I said, hopefully this means a move is coming. Like Mike says right here, Buster says that he feels, pretty content with the roster as it is. Hopefully that's just his poker face. I
Yep.
mean, shoot, last year we saw Farhan say that 3 separate times. And then he went out and signed Chappie and Snell and Soler. So, hopefully it's similar to that, where Buster's just putting his poker face on, got some more moves up his sleeve. So Kruko claims that there's more moves to be made. He also said that last year and the year before. So
I was gonna say he's been saying that for a decade, man.
exactly. So take it for a grain of salt. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, hopefully this means a move's coming. It's undoubtedly going to be a developmental year. I mean, I think we all can kind of see that. But I mean, I hope they make another move. I want to see a bat. So
Yeah. Just for the pure, like, everybody here wants them to compete. Like, we all want to see them win. And it's never an easy pill to swallow to accept that, like, we're going to be maybe not putting our best effort to 100% win as many games as possible. We're going to do some things that might sacrifice a few of those wins. Now, is Taylor Rogers like a ground, like a shattering piece to this team? No. I mean, he did have a 2.4 ERA last season, mostly in middle inning relief. He wasn't great in high leverage situations, but he was a quality arm, and undoubtedly you're probably a little bit worse by trading him. And they are trying to give more opportunities to the young arms. Now, the one question, and I do see Rob put this in the chat, not happy about the trade when it comes to only having one left-handed reliever. Yeah, that's a big question. If you look on their 40 man right now, Miller is it. Like that's it on the 40. Now, granted, they're going to have non-roster invites. There's always guys that aren't on the 40 man that almost every year will make a team coming out of spring that were non-roster invites. There's two prime candidates that are left-handed that are going to probably get camp invites in Juan Sanchez and Lachesi. So either of those guys could make the team. I personally say don't sleep on Juan Sanchez. He was having a really solid year last season, though he did miss the last couple months to injury. I don't actually know what that injury was because the minor league sucks about giving out that information. So there are some guys out there as well in free agency, a guy like Tim Hill, but Buster, the one thing he did say when they made this trade was part of it was to give opportunities to young guys. And it very well, they might have a pen with one lefty.
What do you think about potentially letting Wiz start in the bullpen?
I don't like it just because if you're still trying to develop him as a starter, why take a year and cut his innings way back? He just threw his career high in innings in like 109 last season. Unless you're giving up on that, to me, just keep doing right by his development and build that innings up.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just trying to get the most talented arm and the best, the best chance at winning more games, then throw him in the pen. He'd probably do really well, especially that changeup. I mean, it's kind of a pitch that he can almost tell people he's throwing and they don't hit it. So, it does bring up questions as far as the roster going forward with only one lefty in the pen. For sure. Yeah. But a guy like Tim Hill's out there, that'd be a decent arm. I mean, he was really solid last season, and he has been for quite a while.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to imagine Buster is aware of that. I mean, he was a catcher, so you got to imagine that he's aware of his staff and his pen as it's constructed right now. So it leads me to believe there's potentially a move to be made. But like you said, he does want to give the young guys a shot, so maybe we'll just kind of see how it shakes out throughout the spring.
Yeah.
But I mean, hopefully it all comes into fruition.
Yeah. And the other, they could be going the young player route. They could be just letting some of these guys compete in the pen. They have a lot of really quality arms that they're not left-handed, unfortunately, but they have a lot that are knocking on the door with, Trevor McDonald looked really solid. Roop did a really good job out of the pen last season. Randy Rodriguez is kind of a guy that you do the numbers game in the pen, and he's kind of on the fence on whether or not he might make the team coming out of camp. I already brought up Sanchez. You've got guys like Ragsdale who could be kind of interesting out of the pen with his stuff. Beck's going to be back. Keaton Wynn is a guy that a lot of us haven't really mentioned. But as a potential reliever, throwing 98 with that splitter, that could be pretty solid coming out of the pen.
Beck, don't know if you mentioned Beck.
Yeah, Beck. He's one of my favorites just because he does everything and he seems to do everything pretty well. So they have a pretty deep bullpen. It's just not deep on left-handers. So they're going to have to make a decision of, do we want necessarily the best pitchers, or do we want to try and get another option from the left side, because that might not be the same player at that point.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So, but I think it does bring questions as to, kind of the direction of this club, kind of like we were mentioning, because if you're going to make this move and you're going to just try and move off of, productive veterans. That's the way I like to refer to it, is a productive veteran, even if he's not a perfect player or anything. In order to play young players, wouldn't it make sense to then turn around and trade the 34-year-old outfielder that you've got sticking in right field while you have two different young players that, are they ready? Who knows? But you're kind of better off finding out if they are, rather than bleeding out their options playing Yaz.
I don't want to get my hopes up, but a move like this definitely shows me that, the sentimental value isn't going to get in the way of making a necessary move, not only financially, but, developmental wise, as far as your young players are concerned. Because, I mean, Buster said it when he, was discussing with Bax. He's like, I hated to break up the Twins. Like, that's a sentimental piece in Giants as far as their team is constructed. Yaz has been a fan favorite for years, but it's like you pointed out, if Buster is keen on wanting to give some of these young guys a shot and free up some finances, I mean, it only makes sense. So I don't know if I can necessarily bank on it happening before, or before or during spring, but maybe deadline. You never know if he's having a pretty good first half. He has to just picture that every month is September for the first start of the season.
He'll have April, 30 May, homers June. By the All-Star break, man.
Yeah, dude. You just have to pretend April, May, and June are just September. Go off.
What's up, Jenny? Welcome in. Yeah. If they, I did like, and I've brought this up on past shows. Like, I like that Buster said, he was very careful with his wording and said that we're trying to leave the opportunity for young guys to win jobs. So it gives me hope.
Exactly.
Like, it gives me hope, because if they have the same, spring training they did last year, if Matos carries over all the momentum that he had in winter ball, which, by the way, did you see some of his teammates on that winter ball, or his teammates, and who his manager was on his winter ball league?
I did.
Yeah, Ozzie Guillen.
Ozzie Guillen, bro. That's so random.
It was hilarious. and did I see Johnny Cueto was?
Yes, dude.
Yeah.
So random.
Yeah, super weird. But yeah, I mean, it gives me hope that if he can have a good spring, and depending on what Yaz does, like, I think he could carve himself a significant role. And then at some point, like, some of these young guys are going to just have to take the jobs. They're going to have to do what Ramos did.
That's what I was just going to say. Force your way onto this team and give them no choice but to give you a spot. That's really what it comes down to. Like you said, if Matos can replicate his winter ball performance during the spring, they're going to have no choice but to give him playing time.
Yeah. 100%. And I said the same thing about Luciano on the kind of the last one, where I think Luciano, there's like zero shot of him making the club out of spring. No matter how he could hit 600, and I don't think they'll put him on the club coming out of spring training, because they're going to want to give him reps at left field. They're going to want to, they're going to want him to go prove it down in AAA. They're not going to just get, I mean, Ismael Munguia was like the best player on the team in spring training last season. So, they're not going to just turn the job over to him.
Yeah.
But, Luciano, like, regardless of all the questions about his defense and all those different things, the reality is if he hits, he's going to be on the team.
Yeah.
Like, at some point, like, if he just hits, they will find a spot to play him. It'll probably be either left field. They might move him around a little bit and occasionally give like Fitzgerald a day off at second or something like that, but they'll DH him. They'll find at bats for him. And the same holds true for guys like Matos and McRae and Encarnacion and all these younger players, where if you hit, they're going to find at bats for you.
Yeah.
So we just need a few guys. Yeah. And like Jenny said, and Munguia's in New York, I'm pretty sure now. He went to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say Heath and Mike make a good point. The stars would be aligning like so perfectly if Reggie Crawford was healthy. Like, just to backtrack a little bit on our left-handed conversation,
100%.
as far as what the bullpen looks like, it would be just a perfect scenario if Reggie was healthy.
Yeah. If Reggie was healthy, I would be I would say there's like a 90% chance he's in the pen to start the year.
Absolutely.
I would say he's probably, because first of all, he was looking really good in the minors last season. Not a perfect prospect by any stretch. He does walk some guys, but he's got good stuff. But he was probably trending towards a late season call up anyway. It might not even have been that late, honestly. It might have been like July that he got called up, the way he was throwing the ball. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, hopefully he gets healthy and they can bring him. They can bring him up next season, but it's a bummer. They have a few other decent arms in AAA. They got guys like Tyler Merrick, and actually they don't really have a ton of arms. It's basically like Merrick, Bivens, Rodriguez.
That's pretty much it, bro.
Yeah, Trent Harris, their best reliever, is going to be in AA probably next season. I will die on the hill that Trent Harris is going to be in the Giants' pen by the end of the year. And I will die on the hill that he is going to be a late inning reliever by 2026.
I'm a big Trent Harris guy.
Yeah.
I was just going to put that up. Shout out Joaquin.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Joaquin. Agree with thoughts on Posey. Still feel good about him as GM and never want to reach a point where we're calling him Farhan 2.0. Yeah, and I agree. And I'm going to kind of tie this in. Joe, we see your comments in there. I get it. It's frustrating. But I agree with, I've always said an executive gets 3 years because in 3 years, you should be able to kind of show your vision of the club. And we might not see it this year. This season, it's been a frustrating offseason outside of kind of the Adames pickup. We might look at this offseason and go, what the hell is he thinking? And then by next offseason or the following one, you might go, okay, I see what he was doing in year one. He was clearing the way for young guys so we could figure, whatever. Yeah. So he deserves some patience. And I said that about Farhan. I said that about Bobby Evans. I said it about, Sabian. I was 4, so maybe I didn't say it about Sabian, but I said it at other times about Sabian. Like all these guys, like when you're a new executive, it's a clean slate. We can't judge Posey off of the stuff that Farhan did and what Farhan left. Like it just is what it is. So I think, and Mike, I'm not saying necessarily like after year 3, if they're not in the playoffs, you got to fire the guy, but you got to at least see a direction. Like I withhold most of my, strong feelings and judgments on executives until I get through about that third off season and in year 3, because I need to see the direction of the club at that point and if they're on an upward trajectory or anything.
Exactly.
So, I hear you, Joe, but Posey has been here for 3 months?
3 months.
I mean, he was a part owner, which, when you own 4% of the club or whatever, I mean, how much power do you have? I mean, he probably had a little bit more say, but at the end of the day, Farhan was the president making the decisions. So, but shout out Joaquin. I don't think we're going to call him Farhan 2.0. I think a lot of people have to realize that moves like the Jake Lamb thing, the Lucchesi move, every executive makes them. I know we're all sick of them because Farhan made way more of them than most people, but
just can't body guys.
They're all moves that every exec makes. So I don't think it's fair to do that. There was another one in here I'm trying to find.
Oh, there's one that touched on, I forget who asked for our thoughts on the Luis Robert rumors. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, cool. Thoughts on news of the Giants tried to trade for Luis Robert Jr. I'm gonna send you the text message that I sent to Dan and Ricky when we read that earlier that the Giants looked at trading for Luis Robert Jr. This is gonna be the whole scene. Ready? Giants call the White Sox. Hey, we were interested in trading for Luis Robert Jr. White Sox say, we want Bryce Eldridge. Giants say, no, but anyone else is available. Click. And scene. Pretty sure that's about how that conversation went.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Robert's a guy that Cody and I and Ricky have talked about for last year that we've been on the show. It's wishful thinking. When he's healthy, he's arguably a top 10 outfielder. The when And if he's healthy, that's the thing. He's very rarely healthy. Would he be a huge addition to the team? Absolutely. But Chicago's going to want arm and a leg, and that arm and leg belongs to Bryce Eldridge, and I am not willing to make that move. Simple as that.
It's unfortunate because it's kind of a situation that they've been in for multiple years where they just don't have the players that other teams want. Now, I'm a believer that is going to change soon.
Yeah.
It might not be this year. It might not, next offseason, it might not be there quite yet. I'm a believer that it's going to change soon because I look at what's in the Giants system, particularly in rookie ball complex league, San Jose, and they are littered with players finally that are high ceiling, very toolsy players.
Yes.
The odds of all of them sucking, not great.
Yeah.
Now granted it is the Giants, so maybe I should say the odds of them all sucking is like really, really, really high, but normally at least one or two of those guys are going to really take off. So I think, and especially down in the lower levels, some of those guys usually will be pretty solid. So I think the Giants actually in about a year, I actually am a believer that their system is going to be a little more middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Right now they're ranked pretty, depending on who you look at. Bleacher Report had them dead last. I don't really care for Bleacher Report anyway, but ESPN, Keith Law, who's been doing it forever, he actually had them ranked at 26. I think that's more indicative of where they truly are. I've said that many times that I they're definitely not good, but I didn't think they were dead last.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where they're at next year if they're in a better spot to make some deals. If a guy like Tibbs has a good year, if Whitman has good years, Arias, they have Ryan Reckley. People have forgotten about him, but he's finally starting to show some things. Walker Martin, Dakota Jordan, Jeremiah Jenkins, Jacob Christian. They've got a lot of like kind of toolsy players down in A-ball, and that's not even counting the international guys.
Yeah.
So, there's some chances.
And to your point, that's why I believe Buster's been so reluctant to sign these guys that have qualifying offers attached to them. Because like you touched on, it's just, you don't have much, players in your system that are attractive to these other teams. So why are you going to go and give up picks for early round players that you could draft and just keep shooting yourself in the foot? So yeah, like you said, I think after, a year or two, the farm system will be in a much better place, especially when some of these guys in, lower ball work their way up. And then you've got finally some, potential trade pieces down the road at that time. So yeah, bigger picture.
Yeah. I do think that, I think by the end of the year, they'll have at least like 3 in the top 100.
I think so.
They have 1 right now, which is terrible, but I feel like, not counting Bryce, really. I mean, if we count Bryce, I feel like 3 is going to be pretty easy. But they have some guys that I think are going to be pretty attractive pieces if they're just healthy. Like Tom said, several prospects have decent seasons. The perception will change as far as attractive assets. I mean,
absolutely.
A guy like Rainer Arias, I'm going to use him as an example. If he's just healthy, if he stops injuring his wrist on dives in center field, like if he's just healthy, and he hits like we all know he can down there, like if he's just healthy and just hits, he's going to immediately be a top 100 prospect.
100%.
He's incredibly highly viewed around baseball, but he's been injured twice. So, and he's going to be 18 this season. So, we'll see. Mike says, I have high hopes for Walker Martin. Saw him play a little last year. Gap power, tons of speed. I saw Martin hit like a 450-foot home run in San Jose last season in the playoffs, I think it was. I mean, the guy has huge pop. He's actually a pretty big dude. He doesn't necessarily look at like he's like a huge guy when you look at like just pictures on his Instagram or something like that. But then you see him playing and like relative to almost any other player other than, I don't know, like what, Jacob Christian, like Walker Martin's pretty damn big.
Yeah.
And Christian's like 6'5". So it was like he was pretty big compared to most of his teammates. So yeah, he's got some pretty good pop.
Yeah, I mean, what, in a couple of years, Joe Suaro will arguably be a top 100.
Yeah, I've said I think the second that Joshua is playing in stateside. I think the second that he might be a top 100 prospect in the complex league. Like he's that level, but most guys don't get up the rankings that fast. If he's just good in the Dominican Summer League and then he's good in the complex league, I think the second he's stateside, he'll be top 100. And if he's solid in A-ball, you're going to look at a guy that's going to jump up into like the top 20.
Yeah.
Super fast, like Luciano did.
Yeah.
So
easily.
100%. Yeah. I got 2 words for you, man. John Fisher.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Like Greg Johnson sucks, but come on, man.
It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
We could have a 90 mil payroll, guys.
Yeah. And since I live up here, the other person I will also mention is John Stanton.
Yeah.
Who is the Mariners owner.
Yeah.
So who likes to play cheap, even though the Mariners they're in the exact situation that they should be spending. So yeah, there's a couple owners that are definitely significantly worse than Johnson, as bad as Johnson is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Here. We'll kind of go in order. Real question is, will the Giants blow it up? No, if no good other prospects after 2025. They have amazing ability to get injury prospects.
No.
It is quite a talent.
That is a talent for sure. It's just they'll never rebuild, in my opinion. They'll never go for a full rebuild.
I've seen people that are like, shame on Giants fans, and it's like, there's a lot of Giants fans that would be accepting of that if that's what they decided. If they just communicated and were like, guys, we're not close. We're blowing it up. But they're not going to. Like, they're, especially after making the Adames and Chapman moves, I don't see this team. The Verlander one, I don't care. It's a 1-year deal. They signed Randy Johnson coming off like a 90 loss season, or it might have been like an 88 loss. I mean, it was not good. Yeah. And then they, granted they won like 88 games the year he was here. Before, it was the year before their first World Series, but the Verlander one doesn't mean anything to me. But you make Adames and Chapman, it doesn't indicate that you're about to blow anything up. Like, they're not going to full on rebuild. So, they're going to try and win in some capacity, and it might hold them back, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, my over under for the year is 84.5, and I feel like that's pretty generous.
Yeah.
Seems about fair, though.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the Pirates. They're freaking terrible too. The Reds owner, my buddy John, if you're watching, I'll shout them out too. He's a big Reds fan. Their owner's terrible. Yeah, there's plenty that are worse than Greg Johnson. There was another one from Tom, kind of builds off that one from Fandelic. The important thing is to create opportunities by clearing the decks for players to advance all the way to the big club. Trade Wade and Yaz and live with the record this season. Yeah, I mean,
I've been saying that.
I can accept. I'm not saying like a rebuild, but like I can accept a developmental year. That's what we've been referring to it as. You're not throwing away Adames's prime. You're not throwing away Chapman's prime. You're not throwing away all their primes like forever. You're saying, hey, this year, realistically, we're not that good. We're way behind the Dodgers. And the only way that we're going to have any hope and prayer at actually catching them is by playing some guys with upside. Now, it brings a lot more variance because you kind of know what you're going to get out of Yaz. You're going to get a 2-WAR player. You're going to get a guy that's not going to really hurt you a bunch, but he's also not going to really help you in a whole lot. He's just kind of there. And the best thing you can say about him is he plays solid defense in right field. Okay. And he's also god awful with runners in scoring position and hits most of his home runs when the games don't matter anymore. So,
or in September.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. They were like basically mathematically eliminated. And he ripped off like 7 homers. He was having an 11 home run season, and everyone was like, see, this is why they should have moved him. And then he goes ham the second they're like basically eliminated. And it was like, okay, great. Awesome. But yeah, like they can live with a year of not being great, knowing that guys like, and it's no guarantee that you're going to get them, but knowing that they are going to be in a spot financially where, and you know, to Joe's point, they've been cheap about this. I've criticized them about how they don't overpay at the top of the market, but they will be in a spot next season where they are so far under the tax, and they're not going to have to worry about a repeater tax.
Yeah.
That they could just go out there and blow away every offer for whether it's a Vladdy, whether it's a Kyle Tucker, one of those guys. If you don't like what you see out of Luis Matos or Grant McCray or whoever, and you say, you know what, we can't sit around waiting for an outfielder to step up. We need to go get one. Go pay whatever you gotta for Kyle Tucker. Like, you can afford it. But, you know, will they?
I hope, because that would make it a very, very fun offseason next year. So,
yeah,
it is open. Let's see what's everyone's comments are booming today. I'm loving it.
I know. Yeah, we. You know what, guys? We actually jumped into this with pretty much nothing on the docket other than the Taylor Rogers trade. So, which only so much I can say about a left-hander getting dealt. So we're going to just keep rolling off of whatever you guys want us to talk about. So if you guys have anything in particular, you know, we'll definitely. Oh, also I pulled up Luis Robert Jr.'s stats from the last handful of years in his career. I'm going to throw out 2020. He stayed healthy. He played 56 of the 60 games. The next 4 years in 162 game seasons, he played 68 games. He had a 3.6 WAR in Jesus. 98 games, 145 games, and 100 games. Yeah. So you're looking at a guy that's what I mean, what is that average to? Like 100 games a year?
If
ish.
That's why I'm saying, dude, like when he's healthy, he's a top 10 outfielder. He's a potential superstar, but he's very rarely healthy. And that is not worth giving up your best prospect in years for. So,
yeah,
that's my thoughts. But I was going to say, I do find it interesting that they at least entertain discussions, because that gives you a little bit of an idea of how Posey views the current outfield situation. Because you know Ramos is a lock, you know Lee is a lock, so it definitely makes it interesting, you know, to see how he views it.
Yeah. Heath says, I think if Farhan was here, the offseason would have been Chapman leaves, Kim for shortstop, and Bregman at third base on a 2-year with an opt-out deal. Honestly, I could see it.
He would have for sure signed Kim.
100%. He would have been like, well, why would I overpay for Adames when I can get Kim on the steal of a contract? Yeah. Then he would have been hurt, not been a shortstop.
Yeah.
That would have been. Mike, Joe Kelly is a right-hander, and also I don't like that guy.
Yeah, I'll pass on Joe Kelly.
He's got good stuff. I just don't like him.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean with Robert, okay, I mean here, would you do this? Because, and I don't know, I think the league still views him pretty highly. He's not going to be viewed as a top 20 prospect anymore, but would you move Kyle Harrison in a trade for him?
For Luis
if can you build a trade around Kyle Harrison and say, you know, this is the centerpiece, and then we're going to obviously throw guys like Tibbs in and probably like a Luciano, and then you're going to have to find like another really good prospect to put in there. But
I mean, I can get behind the idea of it. And I'll give you the reason. I'll give you my reasoning. He still has like 3 or 4 years of team control.
Yeah, 3 years. I think he's under contract for $15 million this year. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have it in front of me. I think he has $15 million this year, and then 2 back-to-back club options for $20 million each.
Yeah.
So you have him under control for a relatively inexpensive price, given the talent.
Exactly. That's why I would consider it. Yeah. If it was A 1 year? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But
I think the thing with Robert Jr. is when healthy and right, he's like a top 15 position player in the game.
easily.
I mean, who do the Giants have right now that we think could be a top 15 position player in baseball? Yeah, exactly. If you go off WAR, people will tell you Matt Chapman was last season, but I mean, I'm sorry, I value offense way too much and driving in runs and game on the line. Did you want Matt Chapman up? Hell no. So
love
I love the guy.
Chappie. Yeah, I love Chappie, but runners in scoring position, it was hard to watch.
Yeah. So it's I don't think it's a really tough one to do. Now, the one trade I saw someone throw out a week or two ago around Harrison was for Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah.
Am I butchering how to pronounce his last name? But yeah, from Miami.
Yeah,
that's a risk.
It's a risk for sure.
But
you got high upside right there, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy upside. Yeah, exactly. I mean, a couple names that people have mentioned that I'd be willing to entertain if you're, looking to make a move on the trade market. Torkelson, Steer. I mean, those are two guys you can get for, you wouldn't have, it wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg, and they would immediately improve your team.
Yeah.
So just thoughts.
Yeah. Mike, who are you talking about? I see 104 stolen bases, a 355 average, 44 walks to 43 Ks, sound with 1 home run. Last year's stats. Someone stole 104 bags?
No.
That can't be right. I mean, I take it, but that can't be right.
I was gonna say, how many steals did Ellie have?
I think Ellie had like 80 or something like that.
Let's grab the boy. Hey.
What's up, guys?
What's up, dude?
What'd I miss?
Oh, we're just we're just ripping through the chats. We didn't, like I texted you guys earlier. I'm like, I don't have anything to talk about, so we're just gonna kind of rip through the chats today and see what we got.
Chat's been popping, bro. So
yeah,
awesome. See,
guys,
this is regulars.
This is the SF Giants Cove on Instagram. Drop a follow if you haven't. Brother's blowing up on there.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. If you guys, for sure on Instagram, follow him at SF Giants Cove. I'm also been posting stuff on here. There's the socials. For anybody that doesn't and wants to, we've been posting a whole ton of. I need to redo this and add the SF Giants Cove on there one of these days. But yeah, follow those. And then at SF Giants Cove, we're putting a lot of prospect stuff out. In particular, Ricky's been putting out like Giants news stuff as well on his. We're going to do that throughout the year. We're going to be sharing prospect highlights, especially because, a lot of you guys see the Giants play. Not a lot of you guys necessarily watch the minor leagues. We watched a lot of those games. 3 of the teams tend to be playing at the same time. So I'm kind of usually like flipping between games. But I catch a lot of the Richmond games and I usually catch a lot of the AAA games. And honestly, with how the rosters are looking like they're likely to shake out, the only real reason I'd have to watch AAA is to watch Luciano and Eldridge. Outside of that, I'd really rather watch San Jose, if I'm being honest, because that team is going to be absolutely loaded with talent. But we'll be posting a lot of it. So make sure you guys are dropping a follow on there.
Hey, how much is the MILB TV?
It's like $30 for the year.
Bro,
yeah,
I'm gonna get it this year. Yeah, I'm gonna get it this year.
I will say when you're watching the lower levels though, don't have high expectations for the quality. It's like watching somebody film like a high school game.
They just got an iPhone 13 up in the stands, just out of little mouth.
Yeah.
Dude, there are times where I legit think that the camera person is like watching the ball and forgets to move the camera because you'll see like a guy hits like it's like a lefty, and he hits a home run that's like clearly going out to right field. And you literally see like the camera will go up and it like left a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap. And like jerks over.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, AAA is pretty good. Like AAA is pretty solid. I would say AA is probably like what, early 2000s watching TV.
Yeah, and then like I said, San Jose a lot of times is like, it's almost like they take on like interns like out of high school that want to get into that field like when they get to college.
Yeah.
So
the one Jenkins, I was trying to pull his highlights the other day for the video, and dude, both home runs, the first home run that he hits the ball and it cuts to like a freaking stadium seat. Like the person, it like cut to the person walking up the stairs or something with the camera. So it's literally shows the stadium seat with his like lady or something. And then it just cuts to him rounding first, like trotting. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I didn't want to see where that ball ended up anyway. I guess it cleared the fence. And then the next home run, the whole feed just crapped out. And all of a sudden the feed, like it literally goes black screen for like, I don't know, a minute and a half. And then all of a sudden it cuts back and Jenkins is like walking in from third. And I'm like, oh crap. All right. He hit another one.
Yeah. It's definitely nice though, just to be able to have anything at all, just because it gives you a way better feel than just sitting there box score watching, because, you know, some of these guys, it's like, you can't really get a good feel if you're just looking at numbers, you know? So,
yeah. The numbers tell a lot of the story, but it doesn't tell everything. I mean, I remember watching, you know, like Casey Schmidt last season. You know, a lot of people, this I think is a good example. Like Casey Schmidt while he was down in Sacramento. You look at the offensive numbers, they don't jump off the page. I think he hit like 275 or something like that. And you look at his walk rate and, you know, you'll see 8.5% or whatever. I think he got it like around 8.5% last season. And I mean, for him, it's like, that's an improvement, but like I watched him and he was very clearly way more disciplined at the plate. He wasn't chasing a ton, but he also doesn't swing and miss a whole lot, especially in the zone. He's actually well above league average and, you know, making contact in the zone. And so he was working good counts and he was putting the ball in play. So it's like, yeah, on one hand, a lot of people are going to look at the walk rate and just go, oh, well, he hasn't really improved all that much. It's pretty similar to when he was in AAA the year before. But it was like, nah, man, he's working way better counts. He's getting leverage. He's driving the ball. His power was showing more. Like just watching, you can see way more of a story out of it. Yeah. So.
And that's what I mean. It's like, you know, say Casey's down there and he's only hitting, you know, 260, but he's got like a 900 OPS down in SAC, and, you know, people look at the walk rate and they're like, he's not going to do anything if he comes up because his average is still way too low. He should be in the, you know, 300s. And, you know, so that's all I'm getting at is, you know, it gives you a good idea, especially with these guys on SAC that are getting sent back and forth. It kind of gives you an idea of at least the at bat quality.
Yeah. 100%. And one person put this in here. Yes, Amy G does do the AAA games. She's often in the booth. Sometimes she's doing some interviews and stuff like that around that. But yes, she is down in Sacramento. So gave her a high five at 2 different games. Walking around. But yeah, Jenny, I would disagree with this a little bit, because if you look at the last, 4 times he came up last year, I don't know, he got jerked around a lot. The last like 3 times he came up, he was actually really solid at the plate. His first call up, he went 1 for or 2 for 19 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I remember if you like took the first call up and just threw it in the garbage, and then you just looked at the last like 3 call-ups or whatever it was, he was hitting nearly 300 in those. He actually played really solid in very limited opportunities. and inconsistent playing time. So I think he's started to adjust and just hasn't really had enough of an opportunity. So it's, we'll see. Yeah. That's where I'm like, I can't fully disagree because it was a small sample size, but it was like 70 or 80 plate appearances at that point, and he played really solid in those at the plate.
He showed the flashes towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
That those adjustments were starting to kind of, go into fruition. So it's just all about hopefully he can carry that momentum into spring, because the three of us are all big on Casey Schmidt. We're big fans of him. So
yeah, and I think something people need to realize too is, in his second year in the minors, he flew through basically the entire system. I believe he started in Eugene, went all the way through AA and AAA, and went to the big leagues all in the same year. And that is a massive jump, even from a guy coming out of college. You can't have that high of standards out of a guy like that. It's not like Casey was, this top 5, pig generational talent necessarily. So, although that has been a couple of years now, like Cody said, I mean, he's gotten very limited opportunities to prove himself. And I can assure you, anytime you're giving a guy, 5 games to prove himself before you send him down, that is never going to be a good recipe for success for anybody that you're trying to develop. It would be like being in the NBA and you're coming off the bench cold and you're a shooter and you've got, 3 minutes to prove yourself at the end of the first half, and Steph Curry sitting there on the sideline and you're looking over your shoulder. Oh shit, when's Steph coming back in? It's like, that's never going to set anybody up for success. Obviously the Giants haven't had a guy like that on the field that he's got to worry about. But the point is in baseball, you got to get reps in. You can't expect a guy to do what Ramos basically did last year and kind of just catch fire and not really lose it for a month or two.
Who did have more at bats between Schmidt and Luciano?
That's a good question.
Schmidt had 113 plate appearances in the majors. Luciano hit. Also, Schmidt's walk rate was actually 9.3% in Sacramento last season. That's respectable.
Yes.
3.5 in San Francisco, but it was a little bit of pressing going on there. Luciano received 81, so Schmidt actually got more.
Schmidt,
and probably deservedly so.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Schmidt's development. 2021, A-ball. He was fine. 2022 goes to high A, then to AA, and like Ricky said, he finished in AAA. He only got 4 games in AAA, but he, kind of blew through the minors there. 2023 starts in AAA, finishes in the, bounce back and forth between the majors and AAA. Obviously got a ton of at-bats in the majors. And then last year, same thing. But the one thing I did notice was 2022, the power really showed up, hit 26 home runs, 25 home runs between the 3 levels. Oh, no, that's wrong. 21. Sorry, the way it lists it on Fangraphs is weird. 21 through the 3 levels. Last season, in 2023, between the 2 levels, he only hit 9 in 500 plate appearances, roughly. Last season, he hit 19 in like 400 plate appearances. Or 440. So it like you see some development there. And then you look at like his walk rate, 2023 walk rate, 6.5% in AAA and 4.7 in San Francisco. Last season, it was 9.3 in AAA. Obviously, it was only 3.5 in San Francisco, but less than half the plate appearances. So, yeah, we'll see.
I'm just very intrigued to see what he does in spring training. If he comes out and looks very confident and, gets himself at least some kind of a bench role in the big leagues to start the season, they can kind of squeeze him into a couple different spots, at least just kind of, if it struggles out the gate and they can get him a start or two throughout the week, even if it's like one at second base and it's, one out of the DH spot, just get him a couple games a week where you can kind of let him get some at bats early on. And if it doesn't look good, just put him back in sack for a while and let him get some reps. And then again, if, Fitz goes on a run where he's really struggling, then bring Schmidt back up and then give him like an actual extended look and let him build some confidence up here. But, it's now or never with guys like him, Matos, and even Luciano. If they're going to bring him up, I believe they're all pretty much getting down to their last option year, if I remember right. So
all three are.
Yeah, so you have to get that evaluation this year.
Yeah.
If you're going to commit to Luciano as a project in the outfield all year and you want to leave him down there, fine, but you got to stick with it the whole year. You don't burn an option year and then you still only end up giving him like 50 to 100 at bats in the big leagues. That just doesn't make sense. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's going to be an interesting year for all these guys.
It'll be an interesting spring for a few reasons that you touched on. I know you talked with Casey directly, Cody, and he said that he's super comfortable playing second. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays some second during the spring. And like you mentioned, Ricky, if something happens with Fitz, who's right now slated to be the primary second baseman, Casey says he's perfectly comfortable playing there. And then with Luciano, he had an interview at the Fan Fest last weekend, and they asked him about him playing in the outfield. And he said essentially like, yes, he has been playing some outfield, but he's also been working on shortstop and second base as well. So the possibility of him playing the infield isn't completely ruled out either. It's more so just added versatility in the outfield. So who knows if in the spring they're going to stick him primarily in one of the corner outfield positions, or if they're going to trickle him in the infield as well. So it's, it's things like that where it's just going to make for a really interesting spring overall.
I could see them doing with him what they like the reverse of what they did with Wisely last season.
Yeah.
In Sacramento, for anybody that's wondering, Wisely last year, because I see a few people bringing him up. Wisely, while he was in Sacramento, they would play him primarily at second, but then he would get a game usually at short, and then he would usually get a game in center. Because he's kind of a reserve center fielder. So I could see Luciano doing a similar thing where they put him in left field primarily. Maybe they occasionally maybe he gets like one start a week in right field and one start a week at second base. I don't think shortstop's going to happen. I just don't. I think if he's playing shortstop, something went terribly wrong. Like that, he does not. He can't be there anymore. But I could see them throwing a start a week at second just to, keep giving him some reps in case.
Yeah, with him, it's just, I honestly think a lot of it is confidence. He totally got into his head last year with the glove, and it's not like the ability is not there. I feel like shortstop is definitely not for him just because the margin for error there is so small. But ultimately, if you threw him at either third or second, obviously third's not going to happen unless, like you said, something goes seriously wrong, like with Chapman. But, at second base, I think he'd be totally fine because ultimately it's not really throwing mistakes with Luciano. It's usually with the glove. So having that extra time to get a throw off over there would be totally fine. And it's not like he has issues turning double plays. Obviously his range would be totally fine at second as well. But for some reason, when they have tried him there in Sacramento, he has been a little bit shaky, but it might just be, some guys struggle playing on that side after being at shortstop their whole lives. And it just takes a little bit of an adjustment period. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they experiment with that, if he's just going to be in Sacramento anyways.
Yeah. When you're at second base, people got to realize the spin and everything typically of the ball coming towards you is complete opposite. So, it is a big adjustment if you're used to being on the other side of the bag, like everything coming at you is the opposite. So, I think that because if you look at like the numbers, if anybody want to look at like errors and fielding percentage and all that stuff, but like if you want to look at those kind of numbers, he was pretty comparable at second compared to short. But considering he had gotten almost, played his whole career at shortstop and all the work, it's like, okay, probably a lot of upside to improve at second at least. But
yeah,
I think he'll be solid in the outfield. Like he's got decent athleticism. If you put him in left field, you don't need to be a freak athlete or anything. Just especially in San Francisco, that left field is not that hard in San Francisco, as far as range goes, the winds and all that, but he should be fine.
Yeah. It's not like back in the day where you had the mounds to worry about over there.
Oh God, dude, he'd have a back injury within a week. They still had the freaking bullpen mounds over there. God. Yeah, who else we got down there? I mean, well, and Ricky, the one thing I did say before you had gotten in here was, and it's the case with all of them because you were talking about like finding them some opportunities on the big league roster. Guy like Schmidt is, at the end of the day, if any of these guys, Schmidt, Matos, Luciano, McRae, whatever, any Encarnacion, any of those guys, if they freaking hit, they'll find at bats. Like DH. For sure. Forcing them into, rotating through positions, whatever, like they will figure out a way to get these guys in the lineup. So, it's just the onus is on the young guys. Someone needs to come out and pull a Ramos, take a job.
Yeah.
So, well, and that's the great thing about why they, left the DH spot open. Obviously, ideally, you'd like to have somebody who can just rake out of that spot, but with not pigeonholing yourself into one player there almost every single day, like you're going to do with Soler last year. Now you have a guy like Casey, and it's like, you know what, if you DH him and he's hot and you throw him in that spot 2 to 3 times a week for a short period of time, it doesn't hurt you at all because he's got such a good glove. If you need to get somebody off their legs for a little bit, you have a guy like Casey who could be a late inning replacement defensively. And then you go and, you give somebody else a little bit of a breather, or you have somebody else come in and take that DH spot late in games too. So I am curious to see what ends up happening with Wisely though, because I'm not the hugest fan of him, but I do feel like it gets a little bit tricky if he ends up staying on the active roster to find consistent playing time with Schmidt, just because, if he is on the roster, that might be your ideal backup because you're not really as worried about Wisely not getting a ton of at-bats if he's your backup like you would with Casey, because with Casey, you don't really want to waste that last option year if you're not going to have at-bats for him consistently. Yeah. But with Wisely, I feel like you can kind of just plug him in there. He's okay defensively, especially at second. He's pretty solid. But you're not really as worried about those consistent at-bats as you would be with Schmidt, at least in my opinion.
I just feel like Schmidt has a higher ceiling.
For sure.
100%. Yeah. I feel like Schmidt, and in Wisely's defense, I actually think Wisely has Gold Glove potential at second, but he's kind of limited to that. Schmidt, I think, could win a Gold Glove at 2 different positions, like either third or second. I feel like he has that ability. But he definitely has more pop, more upside with the bat.
Yeah.
Different types of hitters, though. I mean, Wisely, if he's going right, is drawing walks and getting on base, and Schmidt's going to never be a high on base guy. Like, if he's ever a league average on base guy, we'd be feeling pretty good about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tom, all I'm saying is that I think that if they don't see a clear path for Schmidt to get consistent playing time, they might just leave Wisely on the active roster temporarily. So then that way Schmidt can actually develop more and get his confidence up and get his swing going in Sacramento, at least early on in the season, because I think we can all agree Casey's development is a lot more important to the Giants than Wisely's is. Wisely was a waiver wire pickup and at one point just purely minor league depth. Obviously he ended up having a pretty solid season for most of last season until he kind of fell off at the, August and September of last year.
Yeah.
But I think he's a guy you just leave on the bench and, he's giving you solid defense to back up Fitz, or, maybe you even have Wisely take over defense late in games and take Fitz out if you have a little bit of a lead. But I just think that might be their plan with Wisely, unless he completely, screws up in spring training and looks horrible, and then Schmidt's on fire,
Yeah. It's very likely. Yeah, I would not be shocked. I mean, we look at their roster right now, and with no DH, it frees them up. They're going to be able to carry, if you have 8 starters, and then we'll count, Wade, or we'll count Flores if they're going to stick around with him. But so there's 9. And whoever's going to be the right-handed half of the platoon with Yaz, so there's 10, plus a backup catcher, 11. So that leaves you 2 spots. That's going to be, another outfielder, another infielder at that point. So, Wisely and Schmidt are probably competing for a spot. And depending on how much playing time they want to distribute, the one advantage Schmidt has is that he plays third, and they've been talking about trying to get Chapman a day out of the field occasionally. And how much of an advantage is it that you can take Matt Chapman and put him on the bench and you don't really sacrifice anything defensively at third base, because you can put Casey Schmidt out there at third, who is damn near as good, defensively. So, there are some things that there are reasons to keep him over Wisely, but I could see, to Ricky's point, trying to get him more at bats. So,
yeah,
I feel like Harar is definitely going to be on the team, though.
I hope. I like Harar.
Yeah,
I do too.
The one thing I will say that I don't know if you guys touched on it, but that Wisely has an advantage of is that he hits from the left side, and
True.
This team is pretty light on lefties. So that might be something to his advantage, but
also, did you see Murph and Marcus on KNBR put out a lineup?
I did
not. They had the 5-hole.
Who was in the 5-hole?
They had Bailey hitting 5th. I was like, bruh.
No, don't
Maybe
get me started. Don't get me started.
You're gonna trigger me, Cody.
Maybe till June 1st you can hit him in the 5-hole.
I'm not gonna get too hung up on KNBR, but I've been saying this for a while. The delusion is real. There is one thing to be a flagship station for the Giants, but it is a whole nother level to be so delusional that you think one of the worst hitters in the league last year is going to be hitting in the middle of a lineup that has improved. Whether you like the lineup or not, you've got a full year of Ramos, you have Lee, you have Adames, probably have a full year of Fitz, and Harar in there. That is significantly better than what you're mostly working with at different points in time throughout last season.
Yeah.
There's no way Bailey is hitting 5th.
Yeah. If they're just worried about getting a lefty in the middle of the lineup, you can make a way stronger case for Wade and Yaz than you can for Bailey. And their cases aren't great. I was like,
go get frickin' Mike Tauchman and throw the damn middle of the lineup over frickin' Bailey. My God.
Tauchman.
Oh my God. Is Eli Whiteside doing anything? No, just kidding. I'm kidding, everybody. Before I have half the Giants fan base coming after us. No,
I will take Eli Whiteside all day.
It's fine. He's here for the defense. Who else is going to frame pitches in the dirt, with a runner on third? I'm just kidding.
Hey, I'll take Eli Whiteside all day over Tom Murphy. No question.
Yeah. Man.
It's like Hector Sanchez over Tom Murphy.
I was going to make a comment, but you know the memes that go around with the guy throwing the football at the girl? I'd take that person over Tom Murphy.
Oh man, I really hope they they make the smart move. And if Huff rakes in spring training, they're just like, all right, we're done with this loser. Like we can ditch the 3 to 4 million.
Yeah.
Please.
I mean, this is it right here. I mean, we just have to accept some guys are going to fail. Like, not everybody's going to be good. The team might not be great. We could, they could go right-handed heavy, just trot out, hand Harara first base mitt and just trot out guys like Harara every day at first, play Matos in left and move Ramos to right. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be some excitement. The team might not be great. Realistically, like best case scenario, they're probably like a low 80s, maybe mid 80s win team if a couple young guys develop. But I mean, we're just never going to know if we have core pieces or not. I mean, how crappy is it going to be if like Luis Matos ends up being like a 290 hitter somewhere else?
Yeah.
In like a year.
All
because he goes to the White Sox who suck and they're just like, screw it, we'll play him every day. And all of a sudden he's a 290 or 300 hitter there.
Yeah.
Like,
all because you wanted to roll with another Yaz, season starting, majority of the games in right field because of platoon advantages. And you're like, you know what, Matos, you're going to start one game a week and get your 4 at-bats. And if you go 0 for 4, 2 weeks in a row, you're going back down to Sacramento. And then we're just going to waste the whole season. You're going to run out of option years. We're going to go into spring next year. And if you don't absolutely light it up, you're going to get traded for a bag of peanuts like Joey Bart.
God, Farhan really traumatized us, guys.
It's not just us. I mean, all these guys in the comments will tell you guys the same thing.
It's true. That's what I'm saying. But geez.
And you know what, guys? Like, if a lot of people think, because I've heard people say like, oh, they need to just be mentally tough and blah, blah, blah. And like when we were talking to Casey, like he said it's a mind, when you're coming up and he's, one of the things he said that he did better on the last couple call-ups was that he focused more on like just what he can control and accepting that there are things outside of his control. But you're trying to tell these 21-year-olds to have that maturity, or 22 or 23-year-olds and stuff like that. It's not going to go well when the saying I've used over and over, when you have a game where the best hitters in the world fail 70% of the time and you're making these guys afraid of failure. Like, that's not a way to develop these guys. So keep that energy with all these young guys. Like, bring them up when they're going to have real opportunities. If you're trying to put someone on the taxi squad, put a Brett Wisely on the taxi squad. Put a, Gerard Encarnacion on the taxi squad, who's going to be 27 or whatever. Put a Christian Koss on the taxi squad. Like, put those guys on the taxi squad. Don't bring up a young player just for the sake of like, oh, we're going to, try and sell a couple extra tickets this week and get a few more people watching the game because we're going to bring Marco Luciano up for 3 days. Then we're going to send him down. He's going to get one start, one pinch hit appearance, and then he's going back down to Sacramento after he goes 0 for 4. Like, just, there's a way to develop these guys, and the way they're doing it ain't it. And it's something that it's not limited to Farhan. They were not good about it during the Sabian and Evans era. Like, there were a lot of players that they jerked around, but to their credit, the highly ranked, highly touted top guys that they really wanted to give opportunities to, they didn't mess with. Crawford came up, played every day. Posey came up, played every day. Now, they played him at first initially, and then they moved him, but Belt came up, played every day. Joe Panic came up, played every day. Like, they brought these guys up and played them every day when they were those like highly touted guys that they were like, we're going to clear the deck for you. We're going to get everyone out of the way. You're getting your opportunity now, and you're going to just play every day. Not, hey, you raked in AAA, but now we're going to bring you up and you're going to get 2 starts next week.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I'm hoping for.
And because we've heard this argument before, they never at any point sent those guys up and down.
Yeah.
I want to say Brandon Belt got sent down one time in his rookie year, and that was early on in the season. And after that, never got sent down to the minors. The only time he ever played in the minors was when he was on rehab stints. And the same thing for Joe Panic. Like, those guys never got messed with. It was like, it's your job now, run away with it. And the thing is, it's like Flores, Wade, and Yaz, you keep all three on the roster and you get an extra 2-3 wins this season over just letting guys like McRae, Matos, Schmidt all develop. It's like, what is going to be worth it in 2 seasons? Their development, or you say, screw it, we're going to take those extra 2 wins this year, still not make the playoffs, and then in 2 seasons we're going to overpay for another, Flores type that we're going to keep for 5 years and pay way too much for a reserve player. So
yes, sir. Yes,
Aaron,
sir.
no chance they should trade Eldridge for Robert Jr. We kind of had that talk earlier, but not for a guy that averages 100 games this season.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
Mm-mm.
If he was not an injury-prone player with 3 years of control, yeah, I'd do it. I mean, we've talked. I'd trade him for Vladdy if you had an extension in hand. But nah, not for Robert. Not the player.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it to Dan and Cody numerous times, but I have zero interest in trading for Robert Jr. at this point until the White Sox make it clear that they've moved off their stance and what they're asking for, because what they're asking for is going to be a whole lot more than just Bryce Eldridge in return. You're going to be looking at giving away probably, like a Tibbs also, and probably another couple of arms as well. It's going to be a huge haul, and I just don't think he's worth it. The Giants just can't afford to take those risks, so I have zero interest in having that conversation. Like Cody said, if you can get Vlad with an extension being done, go ahead and give up Bryce, and you're probably, giving up a couple other guys as well, but that's worth it because you have a consistent, proven superstar where you don't really have that with Robert Jr. I joked with these guys earlier today that Robert Jr. is the type that would come to the Giants and just be injured the entire rest of his contract, and the Giants would never get value out of him. But then the Dodgers would go and make the same move, and he'd be their next super young superstar under team control for cheap.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what did I say, Dan, earlier?
The way it goes.
Kind of to Ricky's point. I said that, with all the toolsy players in the Giants system, I was saying like how they could realistically be like at least middle of the pack next season. I go, they have a ton of toolsy players in the lower levels. Like the odds of them all sucking are really slim. And I go, although it's the Giants, so maybe it's the opposite. Yeah. It's just God.
Yeah.
Like if the Dodgers had Dakota Jordan in their system, I guarantee dude would be top 40, top 30 prospects in the next 2 months, guaranteed. And the Giants
system, already.
Yeah,
got just because of his
Dodgers. Just because of his upside alone. I mean, they literally have a guy like that right now. He's like in the top 50 for them, and he's in single A. He's like 17, 18 years old, has had one decent season and nothing else, and that's in low A, and somehow he's like a top 50 prospect just because he's in that system. It's crazy.
Man, I hope Dakota Jordan puts it all together because I was so excited when he fell to us in the draft.
Yeah.
Really made up for losing a pick because of Blake Snell,
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, he was viewed as like a fringe first rounder. I think he was like the 37th ranked prospect on a lot of teams' boards, which I mean, for, that's just like the draft board. They're ranking him that way. I mean, teams have their own boards, and you see guys go in the, get reach for all the time, or the other guys fall. So, I mean, and he really fell just because of signability concerns from a lot of teams. It wasn't anything like talent related. Giants just went way over slot and got him. So I'm appreciative of that. But yeah, he seems like a good dude. I don't know if anybody saw, Ricky and I, we both posted a Jordan video today. And the first play was actually a defensive play where he went back and just ridiculous hops to get that ball. I mean, this guy was a wide receiver in college or in high school, I think. And then I think he was going to play in college. I don't know if he actually ended up at all, but he was a wide receiver. He's got huge hops. Then the next play, he hits a freaking like 490-foot home run off the facing of some apartment building in left field. It's just ridiculous. His bat speed is absolutely off the charts. Like, he might have the highest ceiling of any player in their system outside of maybe like Joshua. I mean, we love Bryce. We hype up Bryce all the time. Like, I think Bryce is probably a more, I don't want to say sure thing. He's not a sure thing, but like, I feel more confident that Bryce will be a great like player than I would Dakota. But I think Dakota very clearly has like the highest upside in the system outside of maybe Joshua.
Yeah.
Like, his tools are absolutely ridiculous that he has. So
finding that combination of power and speed is like extremely rare. And I honestly think this season we're going to see the organization put a lot larger emphasis on him stealing bags, because I think he only stole like 7 bags in college last year. And you can see he's got a 60 grade speed, which is very good. So, and you did see him do it a little bit in the Arizona Complex League last year after getting drafted. Yeah. So I think we'll see a lot more of that. And if he's putting on that kind of power along with stealing bags, like, he's going to raise up those top prospect boards extremely quick, given his tools. So, but that's what the system needs. A lot of these high upside guys, because one of them is going to end up being like a superstar type talent if you keep, taking those lottery tickets on guys like that rather than making the safe, like, high floor type picks all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they had a propensity of taking the high floor guys back in the dynasty days, taking guys like Christian Arroyo, Joe Panic, those kinds of those guys. And, even guys like Bickford, and I'm trying to think back on some of their first rounders back in the
Kyle Crick.
Kyle
Crick. Still, it was kind of a safer pick.
Yeah, Reynolds was like the first guy that, he wasn't a first rounder, but he was their first pick in 16. He was the first guy that felt like more of a, upside play. And then, of course, they trade him like super fast. But, when you're in an era where you had great pitching and you had like Posey in the middle and Pablo in the middle, and I think it was like right before Pablo left on some of those guys, but when they had all those guys in the middle of the lineup and Belt, it was like they're not looking for superstars. They were looking for really good winning players. And now it's like you look at this roster and it's like we don't need a bunch of 2-war players. Farhan showed you can find those guys all over the freaking place. Yeah. So we need stars. Like, that's where we're at. So
one day.
Yeah. Aaron asks, how good is Mason Black?
He's cool.
I feel like upside is like maybe a 4 or 5 back end starter.
Yeah.
He's kind of like he's kind of like what we're just talking about. He's a higher floor guy. When he's right, it's a very good command, and he can throw multiple pitches at you, and he's just going to change speeds, and that's kind of what he is. But I think he could be really solid. I don't think in the big leagues he'll quite get to like a number 3 starter. That would be insane for him, honestly. Last season was a little bit rough. I think he was still trying to figure out how to pitch. On that page, I actually shared a video of Mason Black in an interview, and he was talking about the difference between the minor leagues and the big leagues in college and pitching and all those different levels. And he was saying once you get to the big leagues, it's a different game, because guys up at the big league level actually want to swing the bat. Like, they're not just going to take pitches. So you can't just, drop a curveball in an 0-0 count right down the plate. Somebody will swing at it and take you yard off of that pitch. People are looking to swing. Where in the minor leagues, you can kind of, catch guys, sitting on pitches, waiting for that one pitch, where in the big leagues, guys will just jump on you right away. So, we'll see with him. The issue with Black is that he's kind of behind a few guys in, both Birdsong, Harrison. I would even say Roop looked a little bit better in the big leagues in short stints last year. And then you even have Wisenhunt in Sacramento, who will be there this year and has a lot higher ceiling. So,
yeah, I think the biggest issue for Black is relative to all those guys is every single one of them has an elite pitch.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to make a lot of comments about Harrison's fastball and the drop in velocity, but the reality is it's still super valuable. It has a ton of ride at that arm angle. Like, he gets a ton of swing and misses on that thing. It's an elite fastball for all intent, like as far as performance goes. Now, it could be dominant if he gets it up to 95 consistently, but you know, even at midnight, like or lower 90s, it's still really good. Wisenhunt has his changeup. Roop's curveball, that's a 70 grade pitch. That thing's nasty. I don't know if anybody remembers, but he buckled Mookie Betts early in the year. When Mookie Betts was hitting like 600, he was the best hitter on the planet in April, and Roop buckled him to strike him out. And it, like, that pitch is disgusting. And, you know, his other pitch, you know, his sinker, it's nothing special, but he locates it well. But yeah, all those guys, Birdsong has a 60 grade curveball. He's got a changeup that honestly might be better if he ever gets the feel for it. Like, it could be just so good. Black doesn't have that. Like, he's got decent, like Ricky said, he's got solid command. He's got some good movements that he can throw at people. His slider's pretty solid. Gets some swing and misses with that, but it just limits his upside. And his command, it can get a little bit into the meat of the plate. And when you're throwing 90, 91, 92, we saw it a lot last year. I mean, he seemed like he was good to throw like one meatball a game, and guys were not missing it like at all. So it's, you know, we'll see. I like him. I think he's a high floor guy, just like Ricky. I think that's a perfect way to put it. I think you're dead on. So.
Yeah, I think he's honestly a guy, depending on what happens with Beck and his health, that he could end up being that, you know, spots starter type or a long man. I feel like that fits him a lot better. Where a guy like Roop, I've said it a few different times on the channel here, that I think he was just completely miscast early in the season in the big leagues when people were like, oh, this guy sucks, you know, he's getting lit up. And it's like, no, he was being used as like a 7th and 8th inning guy at times out of the pen when he surprisingly made the opening day roster last year. And that is totally not his game. And he even said it, I believe, in one of the recent fan fests he was at. He said how he would definitely prefer to be coming out of the rotation and starting games. So whether that's in Sacramento to start the year or in the big leagues, you got to get him comfortable and keep him in the role that he's used to, because it is such a different mindset for anybody that's pitched at a higher level. You know, coming out of the pen and not knowing what day you're going to be pitching and not knowing that mindset and how to prepare for a certain point in the game is just so much different than being used to being a pro and pitching, you know, 5 to 7 innings and, you know, knowing that you can kind of set hitters up in the first at bat for that third at bat when you get through, you know, the order. So it's just, it's so much different. And I truly think with that curveball, he'll be so much better suited if they can get him a spot in the rotation at some point if somebody goes down due to injury.
Like, yeah. If I had to bet on, like, if I had to pick a guy in the Giants system, or like up on the majors right now, if you just said like you have to pick a guy that's just that you feel the most confidence in at least being a very good, like just a good starter in baseball for the next, I don't know, 5 or 7 years, I would 100% take Roop of the 3. Like, he is so much farther along as far as command and everything goes. The one concern he does have is some injury history, but like as far as understanding how to pitch, good command, control of 2-3 pitches, like he is way farther along than Birdsong, Harrison, Wisenhunt, all those guys. He's just maybe not quite the upside of those guys. I think his upside is like a number 3. Like I think like peak Ryan Vogelsong. I think that's what he can be. And that Vogelsong was good for a few years there. So like, and I'd be thrilled with that. but
it's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah. He always reminds me of that, like not an overpowering fastball locates at the knees and then a curveball that he'll drop, a really good curveball that he'll throw for strikes.
Yeah. Not like
bounce.
flashy, but super effective. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Trade Doval for a great bat. I mean, I don't know what bat they're going to get for Camilo Doval right now.
Yeah.
Unless you're getting some guy in AAA that's another team's version of a Luciano that they're trying to just move off of. I mean, maybe you trade him for Torkelson. Torkelson's a better version of Luciano. Obviously, he's not, but he's actually done something in the majors. But, it's like maybe you trade Duvall plus for Torkelson and just say, all right, well, you get each of these guys a change of scenery and
hope for the best. Yeah.
I think trading Doval after just trading Taylor Rogers to clear up space for some of these younger arms be a huge mistake, like you said, just given his value being kind of lower right now. Ultimately, just leave the bullpen alone at this point. You didn't go and get like a Tanner Scott or a Kirby Yates or any of those bigger name relievers on the free agent market. So honestly, just leave it and let it be a strength because I mean, when you're taking the pressure off Doval's shoulders and he's not in a closer role anymore, and you can just have him come in the 7th and 8th innings, like that's a pretty solid, backup plan in the pen to give you, innings late in games. So I would honestly just completely leave that alone because while there is a lot of potential in the pen, you still have a really young bullpen. So leave that alone. Let, Tyler Rogers, Doval, and Walker take up the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then just, let Rodriguez and Miller and some of those guys, prove themselves in those earlier innings, at least to start the year, and then reevaluate when you get closer to the deadline.
Yeah. But Ricky, the light show, bro.
It's going to be the Ryan Walker light show now.
I think Miller, we're going to see him in the later innings. You're going to see Miller anytime there's a couple tough lefties coming.
Yeah.
No matter what innings it is. Like, if you're playing the Dodgers and you actually, by some act of God, have a lead, if Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman are coming up, if it's the 8th, I guarantee you Miller's coming out there.
I like Miller a lot.
I do too.
Yeah, with him, it's just always just going to come down to command. And it was off and on last year, but I mean, I like him a lot, and I've said it before. He could eventually be the closer on this team. That's the kind of potential he has, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the one thing with the pen. They have a lot of guys with upside, like closer upside. I mean, you got Walker, who's like looking like he's thrown into the third base dugout every pitch, and nobody can figure him out because he throws like a right-handed and a left-handed slider, basically.
Yeah,
from a crossfire, it's ridiculous. And then Doval obviously has been a good closer at times. You've got Randy Rodriguez, who has disgusting stuff. Same thing with Miller. Same thing with, if Reggie Crawford ever gets healthy. There's Trent Harris, who I think might end up being the best reliever of all of them. Maybe not. Walker's pretty damn good, but like Trent Harris, whenever he gets up there, I mean,
McDonald.
Talk about closer stuff. McDonald, he's got really nasty stuff. I like him in the pen. I want them to put McDonald in the pen and just be like, hey, bro, go throw 97, 98 with that slider.
That's so disgusting.
And he throws strikes, man. He gets the ball on the ground. Like, he doesn't just strike people out. Like, he does. He induces a ton of ground balls. Like, McDonald's really solid. He's super efficient. Like, he could be a really good starter. I just don't trust his throwing motion, like, at all, because I think he's going to have arm troubles throughout his career if he's throwing too many innings.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me. What do I know? If I knew more, I'd be working for the team.
Going to Patel's comments, our bullpen is not legit. Come on, it's going to be bad. They can't stay healthy. Who are we referring to here? Because Rogers and Walker have been very healthy. Doval very rarely misses time. He got sent down to the minors because they wanted to give him a wake-up call. That's a little bit different. But, I mean, their bullpen hasn't really been that hurt all it really has been is the fact that they've gotten fatigued and it leads to performance issues because they're overusing them because of what's gone on the rotation. But if you look up their numbers last year, they were a league average bullpen, and that's with basically 1 to 2 starters in the rotation for a very large portion of the year, and using openers, which is just deteriorates the bullpen like crazy. And you see it every year in the middle of the year. But I mean, there's plenty of potential in the bullpen. Like, they can definitely be a top 10 pen in the league without a doubt. I mean, I just listed off the guys. If Doval's coming in the 7th or 8th inning, like, that is not a bad option. Doval has been pretty damn good other than that rough stretch he had last year. But you can't tell me the guy doesn't have potential. If you gave him up for free, every team in the league would be lining up to snag him right away, guaranteed. The ceiling is super high with him. I've never been a fan of him as a closer because I don't think he has the mentality for that. But the 7th and 8th inning is totally fine for him. Now, Ryan Walker could legit be one of the better closers in the game. He was very dominant last year in that role. And then, like I said, Rogers is pretty solid. I mean, he could be an all-star reliever. I'm not a fan of him in the 9th, but in the 7th and 8th, he's been very good for quite a while now. And then, like, he's
been like the best 8th inning guy for like several years.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has those games. Really. He has those games where you get really frustrated, but I mean, that's 3 solid guys that a lot of other teams don't have. So
I was at that game in Seattle last year when he like came out there and gave up like 7 hits in a row, and I'm just like, bro.
Yeah, dude,
it's brutal.
Yeah,
he's usually due for like one of those a year. But I mean, you have 3 guys like that. Miller was pretty solid most of last year, and then Rodriguez has a very high ceiling as well. So, I mean, the bullpen will not be bad. And then if you get a full season worth of Tristan Beck as your long man, like, that's a pretty solid group.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be shocked if Lucchesi ends up being the guy that the other lefty and makes a team over a Sean Jelly or something like that. And
Sean Jelly can go. He can go, man.
He was fine, but it's just nothing. And I could see Lucchesi being the guy. And if between him and Beck, you could probably get 3 or 4 innings in any given day. I mean, Beck especially, like, when he can give you 3 comfortably if he's just not super inefficient.
Hey, so can Jordan Hicks. Sorry,
I had no comment. One of them starts the game.
Had to.
Another thing too that they could do is with Joey Lucchesi that they could do is Tristan Beck still has 2 minor league option years too. So if they want, they could play that game between the 2 and using them as long men, or if Black looks good, you could use Black in that role and kind of do that little rotation between SAC and SF. And then, or you could even do Roop in there too. So you do have options, and you do have a good amount of depth in AAA, especially. Yeah. So
they could, and they don't even have to like Phantom IL a guy. I mean, honestly, with like guys like Harrison and Birdsong, they have options. So if they have one of those guys in the rotation and they're like, hey, we're gonna get another guy a start, so you just get a break. I mean, you could slap one of those guys down in SAC for 10 days or whatever, and then call him back up and just be like, we're not even going to play you in SAC. You're just going to go down and chill. Like, you don't even actually have to go down there. You can just hang in the dugout. You're just on their roster. Like, they could manipulate some stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
This question. Yeah. I mean, the previous comment, yes, but regarding Carson Whisenhunt, this is what I will say about his performance last year in Sacramento. For anybody that watches the Pacific Coast League and knows about some of the parks they play in, and I mean, every pitcher's got to deal with it, but if you look at Whisenhunt and you look at his splits from last season, it's pretty absurd. He had a 2.34 ERA and 14 starts at home with a 1.28 WHIP. On the road, he had an 8.31 ERA with a 1.9 WHIP. And when you're on the road there, you're playing in what, like Reno, Vegas, Albuquerque, Salt Lake City. I mean, these are all just launching pads. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't great last season, but he was in one of the most neutral parks. He was really good.
Don't forget the altitude in Sacramento.
Dude.
It's a rough pitch in there.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, man. I mean, it's extreme. I don't know how anybody gets oxygen all the way up in Sacramento. Must be why some people are lightheaded. I don't know.
You're basically up in the Himalayas out in Sac.
Ball just carries. It's like hitting golf balls on the moon. Just goes forever.
Oh my god!
No one's gonna get this. Sorry, everyone.
So makes
when they bring backyard baseball back, they're gonna put the River Cats Stadium up there in the Himalayas.
Damn.
Dude, I love that game growing up.
I know.
I wish I had those like computer editing or programming skills and stuff. Just like make something not like nonsense like that. I would 100% do that and then send it to you guys. Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Oh man.
Perfect. Oh yeah, you're good, Dan. I think we're probably pretty much good. Anything anybody else wants us to talk about really quick before we hop off?
Did you guys, before I got on, bring up the Taylor Rogers trade at all?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I figured.
We also brought up Jake Lamb. I think I followed that.
Goat.
Who cares? And then we moved on. Yeah. It's just not there's not a lot of action. It's Groundhog Day again. And
yeah. Again.
Again.
Yeah, the amount of people that got worked up over the Jake Lamb signing was honestly entertaining. I'm not one to, find the amusement in some of these stupid little minor league signings, but I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah.
I don't think we have anything to worry about with Jake Lamb. I mean, you've already got way too many mediocre first basemen. There's really no room for a fourth or fifth one at this point. So I don't think we have to worry about him. If
Jake Lamb both makes the roster out the gate, like makes the 26 man out the gate, and B, sticks on the team past like July 1st, he probably is hitting a crap load of homers and they got something out of him. So like at that point, who cares? But there's no chance in hell that dude's on the team.
If that happens, I will give this jersey away for free. We'll do a giveaway on this show. If Jake Lamb is hitting bombs and is here for the first 3-4 months of the season, I will give that jersey away, promise. And if anybody mentions it, we will do it. If Jake Lamb hits 20 home runs this season in San Francisco, not like at home, but like for the San Francisco Giants, not in the minors, if he hits 20 home runs in the major leagues, Ricky's giving away his Eldridge jersey. Yep. Promise. I'm a man of my word. I will stick to it.
I'm rooting for Jake Lamb just for the pure fact that it frees up the Wade Wilmer platoon.
Hey, I've won the giveaway once, if we remember.
That would be such a shit plot twist. Can you imagine everybody's like, yeah, Jake Lamb did it, we're getting a jersey, and then it just goes right to Cody. I'd hang it up right over, actually right there. It'd be hanging right
I'd have
to put up an Uno reverse card.
God.
Oh my gosh.
Papierski
vibes.
Maybe we'll have to make like a custom Papierski jersey and give that away. We'll do that, and we'll do the flayed 341 jersey.
Yeah. Dude, okay, I almost was gonna try and get like super creative, and I was gonna try and get like it would have been like really hard because I would have needed like separate tickets, but I was gonna get like I wanted to buy like tickets to that game in April that we're gonna go to. I wanted to buy it in like in section 135, row 31, seats 4 through 1. I'm like, I could have gotten Slater, Yaz, Flayed. It would have been awesome.
No.
Dude, we gotta hit up somebody with the Giants PR staff and like set up like a Wilmer Flores meet and greet for Dan.
No,
Could you imagine?
No.
Could you imagine how awkward that'd be? He doesn't know, and all of a sudden he sees some guy in full uniform walk up, and Wilmer's like, "Is this Dan? I heard it's your birthday."
It's
Dan would have to sit there and like try to not act pissed off.
Dude.
Oh man.
My face would just go.
He's so awkward.
That's the guy we signed from Aruba. What's his estimate time? 4 or 5 years.
Oh man.
International. I usually would err on like 5 to 6.
Yeah,
probably. Because he's probably not even gonna play stateside until what do you guys think? 2027?
Yeah.
He might play in the complex league.
Yeah, I was gonna say he could play in the complex league in a couple of years. It's hard. I almost wish the DSL, the Dominican Summer League out there, played like an actual full season, so you could get more of a sample size on those guys. So then they could evaluate a little bit earlier on, like, okay, this guy can handle the complex league. Because at the end of the day, like the competition isn't like insanely different. It's all around the same. A lot of the pitching is super raw. It's like a bunch of college type arms with upside, basically. It's a bunch of like younger guys that aren't really fully developed. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Makaris is a guy that does have a high floor and he does take good at bats. So you never know, but at 16 years old, it's kind of hard to envision him coming up in 2029. I don't see that. Yeah. He'd be 20 years old. That would be extremely impressive.
Hey, he speaks English. Maybe we'll get him on the show one day.
I'm gonna try.
I also hear Julian Barreto speaks English.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna try.
Dude, that text killed me yesterday.
If anybody
to my dad, and he was busted up, dude.
If anybody wants to know, on the Instagram page down there below, I actually had a conversation translated into Spanish with Giants international signing Julian Barreto, and told him apologize for the translations if they're bad at all. And he responds back with, "Oh, well, it's all good, but if you want, I do speak English." And I was like, okay, I'll see myself out. To be fair, I checked his profile and there were no posts in English. So I just assumed he didn't. I mean, the guy has not been posting anything in English. So I just had to assume, and he's grown up primarily in I believe he's a Venezuelan kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was
just hilarious.
That was funny, but we'll see. He might be hopping on the show in a few weeks. We'll see if we can confirm that.
Yeah, we will try. All right, we'll make this the last one, and then we'll hop off. With how fast Bryce has moved to the minors, would you like to see him midway through the season, or give him another full year in AAA and then call him up next year? And I'll let them answer, but my answer would just be depends on his bat.
Yeah.
He dominates, bring him up. If he doesn't, give him the year. I don't really, just let his bat dictate how fast he moves.
Yep. I mean, the new regime's made it very clear he's not going to come up unless he dominates. So it's not going to be kind of like it has been in years past. We talked about it earlier with Casey Schmidt. He basically went through almost every level of the minors in one season and made it to the big leagues. You're not going to see stuff like that happen with this regime. Last regime, I think, felt a little bit of the pressure of getting some of these younger guys up and started rushing guys through levels. And, some guys were only getting 15, 20 games in one level before getting promoted. You're not really going to see that. I think we're going to see a lot of guys get slow played, especially high school kids like Bryce. I don't think we're going to see get rushed too much. And even these college guys like James Tibbs, don't be surprised if the guy stays the whole year in high A if he doesn't light it up. They seem to be perfectly willing to do that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
Facts.
That's all we ask for. If you're going to bring them up, do it for good. Just give them the run. Clear out the runway and be like, it's your job, man. And just let him play. That's all we're asking.
Yes, sir.
And until then, don't bother. So I think we'll call it. I think that's a good spot. I know, Dan, you said you had to get going. So appreciate everybody hopping on today. Like we said, we won't have the live show tomorrow night. I've got stuff going on. We will probably, unless something huge happens, you're probably not going to get another video from us this weekend, if I had to guess even. But do follow the IG accounts. Ricky's got his listed right there, Giants Cove on IG. Follow these, the TikTok. I post the videos to TikTok. We post a lot of stuff now on Instagram. We've started doing that a lot more frequently than we had been. And we're going to keep hopping Giants prospect content in particular. We really like shouting out those guys. We are getting some, we are, like we alluded to earlier on the show, we've potentially got a guest that's going to be joining us on next Friday's live show. You guys are going to love that one, but it will take place at probably 7:30 because the only hint I'm giving is he is an East Coast guy. So yeah, we're trying to accommodate that a little bit. So that'll be fun. Other than that, I don't really have anything. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys enjoy it. And I don't know, you guys have anything you want to add?
Tell all your Wilmer Flores loving fans to subscribe to the show.
Just don't follow me.
Yeah. Don't forget
to make sure they comment and give Dan a hard time.
Yeah. We really love when they tell us that he was their best hitter in 2023. It's literally our favorite pastime.
God.
Ricky took the words right out of my mouth.
I don't have words other than just, oh God.
Yeah. Damn. All right, guys. Take it easy. Go Giants. Appreciate you guys for hopping in. Have a good one.
Which Wilmer?